a lot of us, we spend a good amount of time either on a computer or on our phone, or even the everyday kind of movement and living that we do that's kind of down in front of us. And over time and over years, especially because our shoulder joints are smaller, the facets of our neck are a little bit more narrow, and our overall muscle capacity in our upper body tends to be less, and we lose muscle, especially as we are moving into perimenopause and menopause. Our hands can suffer a lot, so can our elbows, of course our shoulders, and women are very susceptible to other issues, like frozen shoulder in particular, neck issues, and so on, as well as carpal tunnel issues down into the hands. So it's super important for women to not just think about stretching their body to make their body feel well, but because that can help opening up and releasing and pulling against the joint and allowing the muscle to release its tension slightly. But it's also important to mobilize the joint, which means moving the joint through a very good range of motion. And we typically tend to move in the same motion, so moving in opposite ranges of motion than we're tending to. And then, of course, is always strengthening. And the issue with strengthening comes around to, well, I'm not very strong, so how do I get strong? And it hurts to get strong, and I tend to be out of position when I get strong, and so on. So with strength especially, it's usually how much are you doing and not necessarily always what you're doing. And that's the problem. The other issue is also, are you paying attention and are you aware that you are going too fast, doing too much, or just even overloading the movements. And that could be overloading by the weight you're putting on yourself, or the frequency amount, or a movement pattern itself. And so anyway, so a couple of things. When you stretch, breathe into the movement. That would be the number one thing. Always work on breathing into the movement. When you mobilize, try to find movements and ranges of motion, of patterns that you don't necessarily go to. So if your typical is down, forward, make your movements going backwards. As a people, we tend to focus in the front of our body and forget about all the muscles and the movements of the back. So pull those shoulder blades down. Bring yourself over your head. Think about rolling your shoulders back. Turn your head in every direction that you can. And so you're working the length of the neck. So you're moving all of the nerves. That would help, as well as all the way down into the ribs, that rotational process of just getting movement into the body. Then when it comes to strength, it's about time under load. So instead of thinking about reps and sets and even load from an external source, can you create your own load, in a sense, by adding time to it? So starting out with something simple like 10 seconds, then moving to 20, 30, 40, and 50 seconds. And maybe after you do maybe even 30 or 40 seconds of a thing, try to change the position so that you can challenge the position, like taking a two-hand plank to a single-hand plank. And I can show you. So a two-handed plank is what we normally get used to, or a two-forearm plank. But very often we think it has to be done in that full position here, which can overload immediately the hands or the shoulders, the neck, the lower back, the feet, the whatever is the problem. So let's start down as close as we can to the ground and start in what I would consider an 8-point plank. So forearms are down, toes are on the ground, and knees are on the ground. So you've got those 4 positions. You want to try to equally load those positions, and your breath is really going to provide the tension. So from here, press down to your forearms, your elbows, make sure your shoulders are back towards your hips, then lift your hips, pressing down to your toes and then your knees. And then everything pushes into the ground equally, so your toes aren't taking more weight, your top of your thighs aren't taking more weight, your hands, your forearm than anything else. And you can already feel this. Then take a deep breath. And then as you exhale, exhale like you're blowing out a candle. Take another deep breath. Inhale. And then again, exhale like you're blowing out a candle. One more time, inhale. And exhale, blowing like you're blowing out a candle. Take another deep breath and lower yourself down. So that is called or referred to as an 8-point plank. And that will give you the opportunity to have an equal load across your body, but focus in on that center of mass while still actually pressing in and creating space and load for the arms. And it's not so much then you go to your knees and you go to your toes and go to your hands, but that is a type of progression. You can simply add more time in breathing. And then you can also widen out your arms a little bit to create space that way. So a center of mass here, a little bit wider, is going to be a little bit more challenging. You can also then go really to a 4-point plank like you would typically see on your forearms down. But the key is not necessarily just long term and long time, but giving yourself the most intense time over the shortest period of time that you can see a result. Check those things out. Remember, stretching with breathing, super important. Working your mobility, finding ranges of motion that maybe you're not discovering or haven't discovered yet. And then strength, not as adding more load, but more time and intensity through your breathing and through your focus. Try those things out. If you have any more questions, give me a call, text me, or send me a line through Instagram or Facebook.